And I know this has
Yeah.
been your mission for a long time
Yeah.
to help people heal from traumas. And one of the things is I know a lot of people that say, I had great childhoods. My parents were great. Beautiful, loving families and relationships. And maybe they didn't have big T traumas, but they
Right.
had little T
That's
traumas
right.
that caused them to be avoidant, resentful, get into situations where they allow their boundaries to be crossed over
Yep.
and over again. They become doormats, things like that. So what is the difference between big T trauma, little T trauma?
Yeah.
And should we be thinking about addressing both of them?
100%. It's a great move. It's a great shift that's happening in culture and society. And, friends of ours, mutual friend Nicole LaPera is a perfect person that's like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe when you're ignored, hey, maybe when you're yelled at, that can have an impact too, right? So she's a perfect person that's bringing that awareness. For people who know about the ACE studies, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study,
Yes.
big study here in California,
Uh-huh.
right? And they looked at kids that were growing up in alcoholic families, kids that had divorces, there was physical or verbal abuse in there, and all of the problems that these kids had growing up, and all the cost, bigger deal to the medical community. Like, oh, that's when everybody started looking. So
And how many things are,
complex.
what is
Yeah,
that? What is that called?
ACE, the ACE study,
A study.
Adverse Childhood Experiences
And
study.
how many, I guess, points are there in that? Or
Oh,
like,
I don't remember. There's like they have a questionnaire and there's a rating
uh-huh.
scale. I think they're 9 points, but I'm not
It's like
quite sure.
if you had like your
Yes.
parents were divorced,
Yeah.
if you had sexual abuse,
Yeah.
if you were yelled at, if you were, or whatever it might be.
Witnessed something.
If you
That was
witnessed
another.
something traumatic.
Yeah, that's another
I
thing.
remember someone reading this off to me and I was like, I think I've experienced every one of those
Right?
things.
Right?
And I was like, does that just mean I'm messed up for life?
No. If everybody took the scale, everybody would have a lot of them. This is the thing this is what I was saying earlier. People get weirded out by the word trauma. I'm using, Louis, overwhelming life experience.
Yes.
It's more palatable for people. I'm like, have you ever had an overwhelming life experience? Well, yeah. Like, of course, bullied on the playground, or shamed at so and so, or failing in school, or not making the football team, whatever it is. So people relate to that word, overwhelming life experience, differently than some people are adverse to the word trauma because I'm not weak,
Right.
right?
They're triggered by trauma.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I'm trying to normalize that in the ways that I can and say, look, these things have an effect on us, and we naturally have ways to try to protect ourselves. They might not be the most effective, but give yourselves a break for the ways you're trying to protect yourself or push the bad stuff away. I do this like cavemen. We're wired like in the day, touch the fire hurts, stay away from the fire. It's like that. So we're just automatically programmed to stay away from pain. So bringing people to the pain, they're like, why would I do that? Right? So it is counterintuitive. I was talking to somebody the other day. It's like we do the U-turn, go inside, and you're going against the current, because the current is stay away, push it away, get rid of it, move forward.
Sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, and that's what our natural instinct is.
What happens if we resist looking at the overwhelming life experiences or traumas in our life and we sweep it under the rug, we run away from it? What happens to everyone if we do that?
I'll tell you what happened to me. We'll start there. Because I was in therapy, as you know, starting at 6 years old.
Your parents forced you to do this, right?
As a kid, the book opens like, you're not going to school today, Frankie. It's like, why? We're going to a hospital. For what? I'm not sick, And I went downtown for psych testing because I got caught in my cousin's basement playing with her Barbie playhouse. This was back in the day when being gay was a total disorder, right? So my parents, well-intended, by the way, oh, we have to make Frankie normal. They sent me to therapy for 6 years as a kid because I got caught playing. I thought the Barbie playhouse was cool. The toilet, the little furniture. I was like a kid. I didn't know. I wasn't like
Exploring.
I was exploring, and at the time it was a problem. So I was in therapy for a long time, learned how to do boy things, how to play with boy toys, how to act like a boy, like do baseball. I did all this kind of stuff. And so I was taught to suppress, right? I was
Wow.
taught to suppress. What I ended up doing was marrying a woman, which is what you're supposed to do as a man, right? And so it was a kind of a mess. Like at 32 is when my life fell apart. Like you talked about yours,
When
right?
you got married, was there something inside of you when you're like walking down the aisle, or I guess you're not walking down, but when you're about to get married, is there something inside of you that's saying like, I don't think this feels right? Or were you like, I'm excited and this is going to be my future forever?
I would like to. So here's what it was like actually for me was like, this is what you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to do. I was doing the right thing. I didn't even know what love was. I never felt in love in my life. I didn't even know that I was missing like I didn't know I was missing something. I was like, this is what everybody else is doing. We were friends.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
really liked her as a friend, but I didn't even understand what love was in that way. So I just did the right thing. I did what everybody wanted me to do. Everybody seemed happy, and I liked her. You know
Yeah.
what I
You
mean?
got
And
along.
I got along, and here's the thing. Honestly, maybe not every gay guy could do this. I could have sex with a woman. It felt pleasurable. Like it was
Sure.
physically pleasurable. I had an orgasm. Like I could do that. So there wasn't even that was like, Frank, this is a problem here. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's got their orientation on a spectrum, right? So I wasn't like walking, receiving her at the end of the aisle, being like, "This is a
Dreading
problem.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Stop
yeah.
this." I was just too disconnected. I feel sad about that now. Like, wow, Frank, you were so far from you. Look what you did. Look what you were able to do so disconnected.
Wow.
So that was, yeah.
What happens in someone's life when they make decisions out of disconnection to
Yes,
please parents, society,
right.
certain rules or standards versus being fully and wholly who they
Yes.
are and meant to be? What happens?
Yeah, the difference, it's a great question. It's a great question because the difference when we make decisions from parts of us that are trying to protect us
Or please others?
or please others, and a lot of that is fear of loss of connection. I'm going to do this because this is what I can see, this is what you want from me. And if I give you what you want from me, then I won't lose you.
Hmm.
A lot of it is, right? A lot of it is fear of
But
loss.
you lose yourself
You lose yourself
or parts of
or you
yourself.
never had yourself.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens with kids when parents are yelling or screaming or drunk or whatever it is, ignoring you. You as a child have to choose them over you
To survive.
to survive. You have to choose them over you, right? So you learn
Mm.
you're the last one that's important.
Yeah.
Okay? You relating to that on some
Well, I
level?
mean, I think a lot of people relate
Right?
to that. Yeah.
We do. That's what happens. So we're kind of programmed that way. And so we make these decisions in a disconnected way. Most of us do. And then it falls apart because this in here, our truth, our authenticity is screaming, is silently screaming inside
Yeah.
because we're not living an authentic life.
How do someone's watching or listening is
Yes.
saying, I love my parents and I love my family and, the family that I grew up with. Obviously, everyone's a little dysfunctional,
Yes.
but they don't support my decision of
Yeah.
whatever, of me choosing to love this person. They don't
Yes.
support my decision of pursuing a career that I love. They don't. It's against their Christian religion or something religion for
Yes.
me to want to fully step into who I believe I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Whether I'm right or wrong about it, but it's what I fully believe feels
Right.
right to me.
That's right.
How do you have the courage to be who you want to be without disappointing, letting down, and disconnecting with your parents, family, and community?
It just happened to me recently with my mom. I'll tell you about this a little bit later in our discussion together. We have a hard time with the and of things. We have a really hard time with an and. Like, can I be myself and also love you? Can I be myself and tolerate your feelings of disappointment? Okay? So kids don't do and, because they don't have the psychological capacity.
Yeah, or the emotional regulation, or
No,
yeah.
you can't do it. So adults have a really hard time doing that. So do parents,
'Cause they've never learned how to do it.
They never learned how to do it. So this and is really complicated.
It's kind of black or white. You either live by the standards or
Right.
the rules or the code that I live by,
That's exactly right.
or I don't know how to be with you.
Right. And I have to truly like, love, respect myself enough to choose me over disappointing you. That is not easy to do. I'll tell you a story recently. So my mom, it's a lot in there about both my parents. My dad was physically and verbally abusive to me. My mom was kind of the passive bystander, right? You need that combination in order
Yes.
for it to happen. And she won't read the book. She's like, I can't read this book.
It's too traumatizing for her.
It's too traumatizing. You're defaming the family. My father passed away, and you're destroying his. So I said to her, this was last week when I was in Chicago filming something. I said, Mom, is it possible for you to love him and acknowledge that I was hurt growing up? I said, if you can't, that's okay.
Wow.
Okay? I can now. I actually love my father, and he really hurt me for things that were more about him than they were about me. And what I said, Louis, this is raw, like, do we ever stop healing? No. Like, this was last week. I'm like, Mom, I chose you my whole childhood because I needed to. When I came out at 32, that was the first time I chose myself over you.
Wow.
And I'm doing it again. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell my story. This is my truth. And if I lose you over that, I'm going to take that risk. I hope I don't, because I love you. I could love you and know what happens. And I hope you can too. And it was a big moment for us. And she rose to the occasion. I tell you, she was 84 years old. God love her.
Wow.
She's like, I love you. Yes, you were hurt, and I'm sorry I didn't protect you.